Hello everyone, how's it going? I'm back with modern ad nauseum style deck. I say ad nauseum style because it only plays one ad nauseum. I've made a few changes compared to the previous version of this I was running. So, weird cards. First of all, Inverter of Truth. I'm running one inverter in the main deck as a tutor target. The thought behind this is that if we have a blue card, either a Thassa's Oracle or a Jace, in our hand or under a Shelldock Isle, and we have a Profane Tutor or a Wishclaw Talisman, this is generally a spot where you can't really do anything if you don't have this inverter in your deck. Sure, you could tutor an Adnaz and try to value Adnaz, but if your life total's low or even medium, that's not really a valid option. So the idea here behind running this singleton inverter is that it gives us a tutor target for situations where we have one tutor and a blue card, which is sort of similar to how the singleton ad nauseum gives us a tutor target for where we have one tutor and a white card. With that in mind, some other brief things to comment on. The mana base, I'm reasonably happy with the mana base. I've never gotten excessively color screwed with it as far as I can remember. I like basic plains, basic swamp because we have these Shelldock Isles, so we don't really need blue mana that much. Also, we really don't have many, it's not like we're running cantrips, so our blue count is fairly light, rendering basic island pretty useless. Additionally, often if your mana is getting attacked, an opponent is going to try to cut you off of white or black, therefore making it valuable to be able to get whichever piece, like if they Field of Ruin or something like that. Other than that, in the sideboard, we have Leyline of Sanctities. I hate this card. I think it's usually trash. However, I think it's decent against the red-black Douthie deck right now, and that's mostly why I'm playing it. It turns out that I do play against that deck in this league, and we'll see whether Leyline of Sanctity proved effective. Prismatic Ending, I think, is a pretty solid removal spell. There is some downside to not being instant speed. However, it's very flexible. You know, you can hit permanents as well as creatures. You can play it for still only 2 mana into something like a Thalia. You can exile an Amulet of Vigor. You can exile a Chalice. You can exile a Damping Sphere. Anything like that. I feel like there's not that much Blood Moon going on at the moment, which makes me pretty okay with Prismatic Ending. And we have this Chromatic Lantern as a tutor target hedge against Blood Moon. Engineered Explosives, this could honestly be cut. It's there just kind of a flex main deck slot. I think it's underperforming a bit. Thoughtseize Spell Pierce, that at this point is pretty standard. Some type of permission, some type of discard. The Godhead, I haven't really run into much Shadow. That could also be cut most likely, and I think the One of Solemnity as a tutor target is a pretty important thing to be running. So this is the list. I already played the league, so this is going to be from recordings, but I will try to stop and talk about any of the valuable or any decision points where there's analysis to be had and maybe something to be gained. Okay, so I'm here with game 1 of match 1 against Amazing the Monkey. We win the die roll, and we would certainly like to play first. So we open on a hand that is very good. If this Shelldock hits a blue card, we're perfectly fine. If it doesn't, then we do need to find either a blue card or a white card, or honestly even another tutor could work because we will have extra mana because of this Lotus Bloom. By tutor I really mean Wishclaw Talisman, and a second Profane Tutor would slow us down a turn and mean that we can only win on turn 5. But we'll play this Shelldock Isle on turn 1, we'll play this Profane Tutor on turn 2, obviously we're suspending this Bloom on turn 1, we have a Pact of Negation for defense. This is a very strong hand. Our opponent mulligans to 6 cards, and I start with the Shelldock Isle. Now we miss. It's pretty useless to put either land or Pentad Prism under there, so this is an easy Angel's Grace to put underneath the Shelldock Isle. We suspend the Bloom, and our opponent plays a Verdant, fetches up a Blood Crypt, and Inquisitions us, taking Profane Tutor. So that's not great. One thing that this suggests, because they took Profane Tutor, it implies they have a second discard spell. Spoils of the Vault is a key combo piece and the more powerful card. So if our opponent knows how our deck works, they should take Spoils if they only have one discard spell. However, they took Profane Tutor, meaning that they know we're not going to play Spoils next turn, so that they'll be able to get it at a later point with their discard spell, whereas if they don't take Profane Tutor immediately, that thing is getting suspended this turn, and then they'll lose the chance to take it. So we draw an Unlife, we play a land. I'm playing the City of Brass here because I don't know which side I want to play this pathway on yet. I'm suspecting actually that I might want to play it on the blue side, because if I play it on the blue side, then I can make 3 black mana with the Bloom that's going to come off suspend, and then I have blue, and then I also have multiple blacks if I like draw an extra Spoils or something like that in order to do something like Spoils for Oracle and then Spoils away the rest of my library. So with that in mind, I'm going to play out the City of Brass now, probably play this on the blue side, but let's see how things develop for a turn. And then I'm looking to play the Phyrexian Unlife next turn. This was a pretty good pickup, by the way, because it gives us another combo piece, and it also puts us into a spot where we have white card and tutor, so I could potentially think about Spoils for Ad Nauseam if it gets to that point. Now our opponent plays a Dragon's Rage Channeler, and then they Thoughtseize us again. So we expected this second discard spell. Now here, they take Phyrexian Unlife. I think this is indicative of the fact that they probably have a third discard spell, because if you don't have a second discard spell, I think there's a pretty strong case that you should take Spoils there. We have more white cards than we do Spoils, so you should take the combo piece that's more rare, because it makes it more unlikely that we can top deck out of it, obviously. So we draw a Thassa's Oracle. That's something. I mean, we do need one of those. However, at this point, we're not in the greatest situation, just because we could top deck a white card and win. We're not in a bad situation. It's just that I'm afraid that they have another discard spell and that they're going to take this Spoils, and that will leave us in a pretty bad situation. But let's see what happens. So our opponent untaps. They play a Dauthi. So if they had another discard spell, they didn't play it. They attack us with the Dragon's Rage Channeler. And suddenly we have a window here where if we top deck a white card, we win. Honestly, if we top deck a Wishclaw, that might also work, because we could Wishclaw for an Unlife, play the Unlife, pact whatever they get with the Wishclaw, and then play Spoils. Or no, it won't work because we don't have a Grace. Never mind, that's a terrible line. However, we could still put a Wishclaw into play. I mean, so we have 7 white cards that win the game on spot. Tutors are good. If I were to draw a Spoils, I would certainly Spoils for Grace in this spot. It's a 3 because 1 is under Shelldock Isle, but I think Spoils for Grace from 19. I'll take our chances on that in this spot. But it doesn't matter because we top deck the Grace. And we play Grace, we play Oracle, and then we play Spoils. Notably, I cracked the Bloom for blue and then held up a blue in addition to this Shelldock in order to bluff that I might have something under the Shelldock. Now, red-black, there's nothing they can do about this once these are on the stack. However, in some situations, this might make them think twice about something. You know, maybe I have an extra Oracle, or maybe I have some sort of interaction piece or something under this Shelldock, and it could potentially bluff them out. I also have this pact to cover anything they might have, because so they're super dead here. Our opponent says Keck W. Perhaps they think we got lucky, however, they made a wrong choice with their Thoughtseize, and potentially a wrong choice by not playing a third if they had it. in the interest of getting this Douthie on the field. So they can't really complain. And we win the game. Alright, and we're here with the second game of match 1 against Amazing the Monkey, playing red-black. We have an opening hand that has a lot of powerful cards. We have a land, we have a Pentad, so if we were to draw a land, we could actually win on turn 3 with this. However, I think that it is fairly likely that them playing red-black, they have a discard spell, and if they were to take our Pentad with that hand, that would be catastrophic. We would not be winning with that hand. So I mulligan, looking for a hand that has a little bit more resilience to it, and I get one that has Leyline in it. So what I do with this hand is I ship back, I think I ship back the Ad Nauseam. I should ship back the Ad Nauseam because this hand does not have that much mana, making it very unlikely that the Ad Nauseam will matter. Yeah, so I ship the Ad Nauseam, and then we put this Leyline into play, and our opponent plays a Dragon's Rage Channeler. Notably, they mulligans to 6, I believe. We drew a land, that's quite good. We needed a third one in order to get our own life into play and to win. So they play another land, they play a Douthie, and attack with Channeler. So we draw a land, we draw a Profane Tutor, and that makes it, this is very good, because now I can suspend this Profane Tutor, next turn I play the Unlife, and then I win the turn after that on turn 4. This is shaping up very nicely. We have this Leyline to protect us from discard. We're not going to need to use this Angel's Grace, so this Douthie is going to be irrelevant, and they can't even get it out of our hand with a discard spell because we have the Leyline. So we suspend the Profane Tutor. They play another land, and then they get Lurrus into their sideboard and attack us for 4. We draw another Profane Tutor. However, at this point, it's not like we need that suspended. We have all the pieces we need to win on 4 if we have this Unlife in play. So I'm going to just play the Unlife. This Profane Tutor does give us fodder for discard. If they had non-targeted discard, like a Liliana or something, then I would discard this Profane Tutor, and that way they wouldn't have access to this Angel's Grace with Douthie. So our opponent plays a Mishra's Bauble. They crack it. When do they crack it? Oh, they crack it on my upkeep, which is kind of dumb because they can only look at their own library. So they should have cracked it on their turn, just have an extra card in hand on my turn, and maybe have another interaction piece. Instead, this way they see the top card of their library, but they don't actually have that extra card in hand. So if it were something that could, I don't know, kill a Phyrexian Unlife, maybe, I think there's a black card that kills enchantments, no one plays it, but maybe they have some sort of interaction on top, and they don't have it in their hand when they could have. Anyway, our Profane Tutor comes off suspend. We grab Thassa's Oracle. We draw a Thassa's Oracle for the turn anyway, just for the humor of it. And then I lead on Oracle, and then we go Oracle, and then we do Spoils. Notably, if they had some way to stop this in red-black, I'm pretty sure there is actually just nothing they could have. Yeah, I really don't think there's anything they could have. I could, on my turn, if my library were exiled, Grace and then play the second Oracle, if they tapped the Douthie to attack. And they showed a tendency to tap the Douthie. I think people attack with Douthie more than they should. It's not always so great to just be attacking with this thing. It really depends on the matchup, and I think people are way too eager to attack with it, and that has won me games against this deck that I probably shouldn't have won otherwise. But they have nothing. Well, alright, they have Lightning Bolt on Thassa's Oracle. I don't know whether opponents do this because they think it works, or because they just want to do it and be like, ha, at least I killed your Oracle, but people do it all the time. The Surveil doesn't matter, and they die. Alright, so we're off to a nice clean 2-0 start, and we'll be back in a second with round number 2. Alright, we are here with round number 2 against MTG Tom. I lost the die roll. Let's see what happens. We have a fairly strong 7-card hand. We have Grace and Ad Nauseam, and we have 3 lands and a Lotus Bloom. So this is looking like a hand that might have a lot of mana, and then I'll be able to Grace Ad Naus with 8 mana in total, so that we can play a Thassa's Oracle afterwards. It also is a hand where I could potentially value Naws if I were to pick up a Prism or something like that. Value Naws on 3, have the Bloom come in on 4, find a Spoils with the value Naws, and then have Grace Jace Spoils for 6. So they lead on Forest and play an Amulet of Vigor. Amulet's a pretty good matchup. We suspend Lotus Bloom, we play a land. I'm going to play the Gemstone Mine because, again, I'm not sure which side I want this on yet, and I don't anticipate having to cast a lot of spells this game where this Gemstone will get depleted. It's looking like I already have combo pieces, and my development, my setup, comes in the form of Lotus Bloom. So I feel okay about leading on this and not being too worried about it getting depleted. So I'm going to play this first to preserve the pathway option. The pathway option is unlikely to matter given that we have 3 Rainbow lands and a Lotus, but just to be safe. They play Arboreal Grazer, put a Saga in, Radiant Fountain, and now it is my turn. Okay, so our Bloom ticks down. We draw for turn, we draw a Shelldock Isle, which we will promptly play. We don't hit a blue card. That's not a huge deal because I have the Jace in hand, or if I win with the Ad Nauseam, I'll draw the Oracle along the way anyway. So mostly I'm just playing this because it's a tap land. I put the Unlife in play under it over the Wishclaw because there's some chance that maybe we have to do a line where we Spoils Grace, play the Unlife off Shelldock, and then like play the Jace next turn or something. Who knows? I know that doesn't quite work as is, but I'd have to have an extra Grace. There's contrived situations where this can be useful. It's unlikely that a Wishclaw is useful unless we're going for some sort of inverter line where we exile our library and then want to pull a card out of it with Claw. Saga ticks up. They have a bounce land. They leave the bounce land in play, which means a couple things. One is either they have another bounce land or they don't really have a creature play off of all of this mana. If they had a creature to play, then they'd have one. I guess they'd only have 5 mana. Yeah, okay, maybe... I mean, if they had another land, they would play it first. I'm kind of reading this as second bounce land. They have 2 extra mana here for the Urza's Saga, and they make a construct. So I'm pretty glad that they didn't have a Dryad, and now they pass back to me. So we tick down Bloom, we draw Spoils, we play a Gemstone Mine, and now we pass to our opponent. We are set up to win with Bloom, Grace Spoils Jace on our turn when the Bloom comes off Suspend. Again, I played the Mine just to keep options open. It's not like I'm going to run out of counters here. Honestly, it's not likely that I even play this land this game, because this game will be over next turn, in all likelihood. So they search for a second amulet that's kind of scary. They Summoner's Pact, and then they play a second bounce land. And they make an interesting choice here to pick up the second bounce land. Now, that means that they're going to play their Primeval Titan. However, they only have 3 mana in play, and they've already used their land drop. So if I hit a Pact of Negation with this Spoils, and I pact this Titan, I can Grace the Pact on my upkeep, pass back to them, and they will die to their Pact trigger. So that's the line I'm going to go for here, because if this Titan hits the board, I'm going to be forced to use the Grace this turn, and then I'm not necessarily going to be able to win next turn. So I think it is correct to Spoils for Pact here, and it's a fun line, and you don't get to do this that often, but every now and then it happens where you like counter a Titan that they needed to resolve. Fortunately, Pact was only like 4 cards down. We pack the Titan, and our opponent scoops before even making us show them the Grace. They should, I mean, we have the Bloom in play, so we could have just stacked it with the Bloom above the Pact trigger, so even if we didn't have this Grace, we would be able to hard pay for our Pact and then just be fine. So it's not like they needed to see the Grace. Honestly, maybe the thing to do would have been to... I don't know if I would have... it's an interesting situation. If suppose they didn't concede, do I pay for Pact with the Bloom, or do I spend the Grace? I think I probably spend the Grace and then play Jace. No, Jace can take a hit. Suspend the Bloom, play the Grace, maybe Value Gnaws. That's probably the line. Yeah. Actually, no, wait. I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Grace Gnaws. No, I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't be able to win. I'd be 1 mana off being able to win. But I think the line there would be Value Gnaws off of Grace. Okay, but in any case, they conceded, and we go on to game number 2. A fun win there with the Pact. Alright, we're here with match 2, game 2 against MTG Tom. We draw an opening hand that has a white card, has a blue card, and has some mana. So if we get any Profane Tutor, Wishclaw Talisman, Ad Nauseam, Spoils of the Vault, even Inverter, this hand is pretty good. So we have something like 1, 2, 4, 4, 4, 12, 14 very good draws and several draw steps to hit them. So I think this hand is a pretty reasonable hand. Our opponent has mulliganed to 6 cards. They mulliganed 5 cards. What happens? Okay, well, they play a Radiant Fountain and an Amulet. We play a Seachrome Coast and suspend our Bloom. They play a second Amulet and a Castle. And then they... what did they do? Yeah, they played second Amulet and then Castle. We draw an Grace. We still haven't drawn a black card, but we still have a couple draw steps, so we'll just keep developing our mana. We play Pentad Prism. And now our opponent has Bounce Land, Titan. So they, in theory, have a turn 3 kill off a Mull to 5, which is kind of insane. However, we do have this Angel's Grace. Now let's see what they do. So far they've gone for the double Slayer Stronghold. So they have the 10 power, they're going to make it a double strike here. And so we Angel's Grace. I actually made a small mistake there. I Angel's Graced before they decided what to bounce with the Boros Garrison. I should have waited till after. It's not likely to matter at all. Just because they know that either I'm dead or I have Angel's Grace here, or I mean, I guess I could have something like a Slaughter Pact. However, it just gives me the most information since I don't need to play this before they make the bounce decision. Maybe in some minute way it changes what land they decide to bounce, and maybe there's a fractional chance that ends up mattering. It's unlikely to matter at all, and because this is by far the most likely card I have, they should have a very likely read that I have this Angel's Grace already, but I should have waited. Minuscule mistake. This puts me to 1, because we graced, obviously, otherwise it would have killed us. So Bloom ticks down. We draw Spoils, however, I only have 4 mana in play, so now I need to play this on life and hope that they can't kill us through unlife, which is not that likely, honestly. If they Titan, they attack with Titan. I mean, maybe they can... So they can give it double strike, hit me to -6, and then if they... Or maybe they can tutor up some sort of like Rex Sage or something like that. I don't know if Titan still plays Rex Sage, or they could potentially tutor up Archetype and have that for my attempt at winning. So they probably should be able to tutor up something here. So let's see what they do. I'm not feeling great in this spot. Hoping that maybe this one Pentad Prism counter bluffs another Grace or something and makes them make a weird decision. They get Valakut and Stellaria West. So there's not really anything they can do with that in combat other than give it double strike, which they should be doing. They didn't make mana off of these. They should make a mana with each of these since they have 2 untaps, and then spend a little bit of extra mana to give it double strike probably. Unless they have something else they need to do with that mana, obviously. They play Simic Growth Chamber, pick up Stellaria West, transmute it, go get a Summoner's Pact for Dryad, play Dryad. But now the thing is, they need 4 bolts to kill me since I'm at 0 infect, and they only have 1 land drop. So even if that land drop is like a fetch land or something, that's only 2 bolts. They need 4 bolts. Now they have Vesuva to copy Valakut. Oh wait, of course they have Vesuva. They got it earlier. So they have Vesuva to copy Valakut, but that's only 2 bolts. Which puts me to 6. Now notice that they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana left over. They could have, I think they could have, if they floated 2 extra mana and then used like the Boros Garrison, they could have Sunhomed the Titan to give double strike, and then we would actually be dead to this. However, they didn't. So they probably made a bit of a mistake there. So Lotus Bloom comes in off Suspend. We draw a Grace, which is good in case they have some sort of enchantment removal for Unlife. I was actually thinking that that's a potential reason that they would be holding up mana. However, the best type of enchantment removal is just killing me through Unlife anyway, so raises some questions. So here we Spoils, and I actually play the Jace first, just because if I Jace mill myself and then Jace plus on myself, and then they Archetype or something, I think it's Archetype, the green thing that puts the things back, then I will be able to win with Oracle after that, since I still have 2 blue mana left over. And I think it's pretty unlikely that they'll be able to remove Jace. And if they were able to remove Jace, okay, well, if they were able to remove Jace, we'd actually be dead. But if we had an extra mana, we would be able to Grace and then play the Oracle, which would be kind of cool. But yeah, I don't think they'll be able to remove Jace, and I think playing around Archetype is the correct move here. So they have nothing, and we win. They should have killed us. They didn't. Alright, so I'm here with match number 3 against Demian Disposito 10. We are 2-0 so far in this league, 4-0 in games. Let's see what happens. So we win the die roll. We open a hand that has a bunch of mana, a tutor, and some white cards. So this hand is looking pretty solid. We either need to draw a blue card, or potentially we have an Ad Nauseam line available to us. So we lead on Seachrome and Suspend Bloom, pretty standard. They play a Mountain, and then they suspend a Rift Bolt. That is good for a couple of reasons. One is because we're against Burn, and Burn is a very favorable matchup, especially when we have white cards. Second of all, that's favorable because it means that the Burn hands that are most scary to us are ones that have a lot of creatures, since we don't have ways to deal with the creatures. A Goblin Guide on turn 1 could be worth something like 6 damage over the course of the game, or even 8 damage, whereas a Rift Bolt on turn 1 is only ever worth 3 damage. So the hands that can kill us on turn 3, the hands that we're most scared about, are hands that start with a creature, not hands that start with Rift Bolt. So we draw a Ad Nauseam, which is pretty solid. It means that this Wish Claw is kind of redundant, but I'm going to play it out anyway, because if I draw an Oracle, then or a Spoils, then I can use this to get the other one, and then have the Oracle kill, potentially. Or I could use it to get a Pact in some situation if need be, or maybe they will have main deck artifact removal and think that it matters and have them get slowed down for that. There's nothing else to play, so there's no reason not to play it. Alright, so they Rift Bolt us down to 17, and then they play an Eidolon. So here we play Phyrexian Unlife. Now our opponent plays a Wayward Guide Beast and a second Eidolon. They attack us for 4 down to 11. However, our opponent, so we bloom to 7. We draw a Profane Tutor. We play a land for turn, and our opponent is dead because we have 7 mana with an Unlife in play and Ad Nauseam in hand. So we'll be able to Ad Nauseam, go down to 2 mana, and then play the Oracle off of the 2 lands. So this is pretty textbook. I don't want to have to click through this entire thing. Can I skip to the end? Yes. Notably, even though they had the 2 Eidolons, we still, once we were negative, only took 4 from them for this Oracle, so it didn't really matter too much. Okay, so let's go on to game number 2. So, game number 2 of match 3, we're up a game. We're on the play because we're up a game, and we draw this opening hand. I don't love this opening hand. It doesn't really have very much mana, which means this Ad Nauseam is likely to be useless. It does have Unlife, which is really good. It has an Oracle, and it has a Talisman that could be used to tutor for a Spoils. So we could lead on Shelldock, turn 2, play Talisman, turn 3, hopefully draw a land, play Unlife, turn 4, hopefully we've drawn another land by then, and then we win with Talisman for Spoils, and then Spoils Oracle. So this hand can win on turn 4 with an Unlife on turn 3. That is pretty strong. It does require top decking lands. I think the chances are great enough that I'm willing to keep it. So they lead on a Goblin Guide, and they give us a land, so I'm very happy about that. Also, we draw the Spoils, meaning we now have everything we need. We do not need to hit a 4th land. So I discard the Ad Nauseam because that card will be irrelevant this game. They play an Eidolon. So here, notice that I could play the Wishclaw and I don't. So the reason I don't play this Wishclaw is because I don't need it, right? I have the Unlife, I have the Oracle, I have the Spoils, and so if I were to play this Wishclaw, I would just take 2 from the Eidolon for essentially no reason. At the moment, all I need to do is survive until I can get this Unlife down, and then that'll hopefully buy me another turn in order to get to the point where I can Spoils Oracle off of my 3 lands. I am going to have to take a couple pain from the City of Brass, but they only have 1 Eidolon in play, and I'm at 16 life, so this is looking to be a fairly okay spot. They play a Swift Spear, they Lava Spike, they Lava Spike, and they have 9 damage, putting me to 3. Now I get locked out because this Eidolon is going to deal 2 to me when I try and play the Unlife, and one of my lands is a City of Brass. So I play the Unlife to rather than conceding, just because why not? Maybe the more correct thing to do there would have been to... No, Spoils, I'd still take 2 damage. Yeah, there's just no line there. I'm hard locked out. I was thinking about if I could like Spoils for a different land, but then I only have 2 mana, and I could Spoils for a Grace, but that doesn't do anything, so I'm just very dead there. So we got effectively killed on turn 3 by Burn, so that's not cool. The city kind of killed us. However, this is still a really good matchup. The fact that they're playing Ramunap Ruins is heartening because this card is terrible, so this means they're probably like a mono-red budget Burn or something like that. I might potentially expect Blood Moon out of them. Unless I don't think Burn would ever play Ramunap Ruins. What would be the point? Yeah, there's no point. Usually they splash white. And they don't have the white splash. Okay, so anyway, on to game 3. Alright, game 3 against Burn. So we... Sorry, hang on. We mulled... I forget what our 7 was. I think it was something unplayable. And then we mull to 6. I think I had... It was either a second Unlife or maybe it was like an Ad Nauseam. But this hand is perfect. We have Unlife, we have Spoils, we have Oracle, we have 3 lands, and the 3 lands are correct in terms of colors of mana in order to be able to Spoils Oracle on 4. This hand is everything we want in the matchup. We play a Seachrome Coast, they play a Goblin Guide, it attacks us. We're getting an Angel's Grace, which is good. If by some miracle they were able to deal 18 to us next turn, they can't. Burn cannot do 18 damage off of a Goblin Guide in 2 lands. But if they were, then we'd be able to Grace and then untap and then play Unlife. So that's cool too. Also, if we end up in a situation where maybe we are close to being dead to infect damage with this Unlife out, with an Eidolon in play, and maybe Spoils Oracle would be enough infect damage to kill us. When we draw a 4th land, we could play the Grace. So there's fringe cases where this could somehow turn out to be useful. They do have an Eidolon. Attack with Goblin Guide. We draw a Profane Tutor, but I'm just going to stay on our plan of killing them next turn with this Unlife in play. So I'm feeling very confident about this game. Honestly, I'm feeling very confident about this game from turn 1 where I saw my opening hand. So they have Bolt Skewer putting me to 8. Then they attack me down to 4. Draw a card that doesn't matter, and now we just kill them. There's some minor nuance here when it comes to sequencing versus Eidolon that could end up mattering in fringe situations. It doesn't really matter here since they're tapped out on 2 lands and we can just play these in either order and win. However, if I play the Oracle first, then the 2 damage from Eidolon gets applied to our life total before we go negative with spoils. So this deals 2, Oracle is in play, now we play spoils, spoils deals 2, puts us to 0, and the other way around, if we spoils first and then played Oracle, we'd end up at 2 infect, because we would take the 2 from spoils, go negative from the spoils, then play the Oracle dealing 2 infect damage to us. So it doesn't matter here at all because they're tapped out on 2 lands, but there are cases where this could potentially matter if there's like an Eidolon in play and we have spoils and Oracle sequencing to do. We exile a library, and then we win the game, so we're up to 3-0. And we're here with match number 4 against Scotty Too Hottie. Our opening hand is pretty solid. We have combo pieces, we have mana. We're definitely keeping this. Play a Bauble. And then they use it, so they see our Gemstone Mine. I'm going to lead on the Seachrome anyway because I think there is a potential here that this Gemstone Mine would run out if I were to use it. But I am going to keep in the back of my mind that I want to play this maybe a little bit earlier than I otherwise would because this is a card they've seen already. We suspend Lotus Bloom. Pass the turn. Our opponent plays a land and passes, so they're representing some sort of counter magic perhaps. They could also be representing like an expressive iteration maybe. However, I'm just going to go ahead and jam the Wishclaw here. I can use the Wishclaw as counterspell essentially, or as a discard spell essentially, and I'm fairly likely to draw another black card. We have 1, 2, 4, 4, 3, 8, 11, 15 in the deck. So close to a third of our deck is black cards. So if they have a counterspell, then this gets countered, and then that's fine. They do. And honestly, I'd rather have that get countered than the Unlife potentially. Well, maybe not. I could have maybe waited a turn, tried to use the Unlife as a discard spell, and then gone for like an Oracle kill or something like that, or an Oracle inverter kill potentially. So a thought, something to think about, but I think we're very likely to draw another one because we have enough cards. They bolt us. They have 4 cards in hand. And then what do? They play a that's showing that they have a Murktide, but they can't play it yet. They're not too experienced with their deck probably because they don't realize that Murktide costs 5 to delve. Our bloom ticks down, we draw a land, we scry. Here I'm actually going to wait because there's kind of no need to rush. If I draw spoils, then I can play everything I want next turn anyway, given that I have the Lotus Bloom. I know that they're going to play the Murktide next turn in all likelihood, and that potentially taps them off second counterspell, meaning that I will resolve this on life. So they tap off for Murktide, exactly as I predicted. And it goes back to my turn, and now I can just resolve this on life. The Murktide decks, I think, don't usually play Force of Negation main, so I'm not too concerned about that. We draw a Grace, which is not really great. Expressive Iteration is a sorcery. I guess they couldn't have been representing that earlier. I actually thought it was an instant. Would have been really broken if it was. Anyway. They Thought Scour themselves, so they're potentially setting up for second Murktide. Notably, they only have 4 plus 2 lands, so they can't play it yet. Although if they fetch, they would be able to. They don't play it yet, though. We play this Oracle just because I have this Jace under here and I am looking for a black card. Notably, I do not find one. They Unholy Heat our Oracle just to get another card in the graveyard. Play an Iteration. Play another Murktide. Make their Murktide huge. Play a Dragon's Rage Channeler, sure. Attack me down to 2, whatever. I mean, this is a very good window if I draw any of my 15 or so black cards. We don't, we draw a Lotus Bloom. They bolt, but I grace, so we're going to go to 1. And then they attack for no reason. There's no reason to do this, I'm ready at 1. We draw another grace, so we can stay at 1 yet another turn. Grace, stay at 1. We just need a black card. Here, Profane Tutor is rapidly becoming not a hit, though, because the fact that I have to wait 2 turns. So if I draw it this next turn, suspend it, they go hit me negative. So now Profane Tutor is too late. However, it's turn 8. I've had a billion draw steps. Sheldock Isle. So we have 1 more turn. Wishclaw under Sheldock Isle. Attack for bunch. Sure, they want to expressive iteration. The Oracle, that's fine. I'm at negative 17. And I draw yet another land. So we just flooded out really badly here. The odds of missing on like probably 6 or 7 draw steps to draw a 15 of in our deck are really, really low. We just flooded super badly. It happens though. I mean, them's the breaks. So yeah. Okay. Well, all right. So we're here with game 2 against Blue-Red Murktide. We're on the play because we lost game 1. Our 6. Sorry, again, I clicked through that a little too fast. It was unkeepable though. I don't think it was something worth even discussing. Profane Tutors and some lands and a grace and a pact. This is looking pretty good. If I can just draw some extra lands, then I'll be able to go for a defended combo. I draw Spell Pierce 2, which is Spell Pierce is what I bottomed here because of the multi-6. Yes. Yeah, they're not likely to have threats of their own that I need to pierce early, so I'm much more interested in keeping this pact for when I need to go off and then just finding my combo pieces with these Profane Tutors. So I lead on a Plains. They bauble and then play a Thought Scour on themselves, sure. We draw an Oracle, so that's good. That means I can potentially get another interaction piece with one of these Profane Tutors, and we suspend a Profane Tutor. They play a Serum Visions, still doing not much. We draw an Unlife, suspend another Profane Tutor. Now we're in a little bit of an awkward spot because we missed a land drop. They play a Murktide, sure. I could have pacted it and then graced. I think I'd rather save this for a potential Force of Negation or something like that, though, when I want to combo off. And also it would force me to burn my grace, and then I would be back to kind of square zero in terms of developing my combo. So while I could have answered their threat here, I think it's more important to just ignore this, get the virtual card advantage of this card being a dead card for 4 turns, and then try to just win before this is relevant. Remember that only your last life point matters, so, or sometimes even your last negative life point if we have an unlife in play. However, this Murktide Regent is a dead card for 4 turns. Unless it's killing us, it doesn't matter. So that's one of the avenues that combo decks frequently use in order to win games. We get virtual card advantage because we blank so many of our opponent's cards. They don't matter, and so we are able to attack along an axis where more of our cards matter than their cards, and in doing so win games. So let's see what happens. Tutor comes off suspend, And here, I think I get a land just because I really need to make another land drop. I'm figuring that, okay, well, if I get a land, I can play this on life this turn. And then next turn, I can get a spoils with the other Profane Tutor. And then I have Oracle Spoils protected by Pact. So that's looking like my best window here. Now, of course, I draw a land this turn anyway, which means I would have been better served getting a Pact, but at that point, I don't know that. I have to take the safer line. It's way too risky to just rely on top decking a land there, because if I don't top deck a land there, I can't do anything. So I play a land, I play the Unlife, it resolves, that's good. And now we go to our opponent, who just leaves some mana up. Go back to us. Tutor comes off suspend, we get a spoils. Unlife is irrelevant. And here I just figure, okay, we have Pact. Maybe they have like a counterspell that they're holding up, and like counterspell Thought Scour is their plan. So I don't think I'm gonna get a better window here, so I just decide to go for it here. So we spoils, they counterspell the spoils, I Pact the counterspell, and then they have Flusterstorm, which is rough. Notably, they don't just target the spoils with Flusters, they also target my Pact with Flusters, so that's a mistake on their part. They shouldn't target the Pact with Flusters. They should let the Pact resolve, because there's potential that I die to it. I mean, they don't know that I have Disgrace. It would force me to burn Disgrace if I have it. And Flusters targeting the spoils does the same thing. So when your opponent pacts a spell that you play, you should let that pact resolve, and then you should counter the original thing or whatever. Assuming you can, given your counters. You know, Flusterstorm only targets instant sorceries, but in this case, Spoils is an instant, so you're fine. Similar sort of thing could happen with like Mystical Dispute. Like sometimes you might have to target the blue spell, but for the most part, when possible, and it was definitely possible in this case, let pact resolve. So our opponent made a mistake here. However, they still managed to answer our spoils, so now we're in the familiar spot of needing to top deck a black card. We play this second Unlife in case they have some sort of bounce, maybe. Maybe it'll be relevant to have two in play. Like a Brazen Borrower or something. Murktide clocks us. Draw Pentad Prism. Sure. Attack, I Grace so that we go to 1. I Grace off the City of Brass because rather than using expendable mana. Notably, if I was already at 1, I'd be able to do the City of Brass Angel's Grace trick. I'm sure most people watching this are familiar, but if you're not, don't worry about it. I'll explain it. So City of Brass puts a trigger on the stack, so you can tap City of Brass for white mana, put the City of Brass trigger on the stack, and then respond to your own City of Brass trigger with Angel's Grace if you're at 1 life. And so your Angel's Grace will resolve before the City of Brass trigger, and therefore, even though you were at 1 life and wanted to play a spell off City of Brass, you will not die to the City of Brass. Just make sure that if you're playing on Moto, you hold control as you tap the City of Brass. I'm not 100% sure if that's needed, but it just feels much safer to do to me. It's a little bit scary because it'll also give your opponent priority first if you're doing it on their turn afterwards, and then you're like, oh wait, no, did I mess up? But then they pass priority, and then it comes back to you, and then you get to play the Grace before your City trigger resolves. Okay, so they fetch. We draw another Oracle. I'm just going to play the Oracle here, looking for a black card. I don't find one. I played it off the Pentad counters because we have 2 Gemstone Mines. I can't take a damage off the city, and I'd rather use the artifact mana rather than the land mana because of the fact that maybe they have an Abrade. Our opponent abrades our dead Pentad because why? I have no idea. They're just, why would they do that? Who knows? Attack with Murktide. We go to -4. We continue to fail to draw black cards. Attack us to 5 Infect. I hold the Seachrome because I can make this come in untapped if I use my 2 gemstones first, then play the Seachrome. And if I draw another land or whatever, I'm dead anyway, so there's no reason not to hold this. maybe it bluffs them a little bit. Maybe it, yeah, maybe it bluffs them a little bit, and I can make it come into play untapped if I need to. And yet we draw another land, and now we die. So, not our best games. We just bricked on combo pieces a whole lot, drew a whole bunch of dead cards in air. It happens. That's variance. You know, whatever. Keep on playing. So we're here with round 5 against Joker's Wild, and we're looking to try to get the 4-1 since we are 3-1 at the moment. We lose the die roll. Let's see what we start out with. So we start out with a pretty solid hand here. We have a Grace, we have a Profane, we have 2 lands and a Prism and an Oracle, so I can play this Prism, suspend this Profane, but the problem is this Profane doesn't have black mana to suspend it with, and if I can't suspend this, then things are a bit risky. I also could be in a spot where if I draw another land I can value Naws, so that's a thought. I think this hand is probably barely a keep. It's not amazing, but I think it's worth keeping. But I actually don't remember if I keep it. No, I do keep it. Okay. Again, I don't love it, but it's there. Our opponent mulls to 5 cards. They lead on a tapped Stomping Grounds, so I'm thinking this could maybe be like Ponza or something. So we draw a land and it makes black mana, so that is perfect. That means both our Profane Tutor and our Ad Nauseam lines open up. So we play a Seachrome Coast and pass. They play Auntie's Hovel, so they are playing Goblins. They play Snoop on 2. We draw a Pact of Negation, we play a land, and we suspend our Profane Tutor. Our opponent plays a land, fetches, has a Bargart Harbinger on top, so they got very, very lucky. However, we do have this Pact of Negation, so when they play this Bargart Harbinger, I am forced to Pact Grace, otherwise they will kill me with Snoop combo. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this combo, they put a Kiki-Jiki on top, they make 1 billion copies of Conspicuous Snoop with Kiki-Jiki, then they make a copy of Harbinger and put, you can put Mog Fanatic, or you can put the thing that sacrifices a goblin to deal damage. It's like the black 4-drop. You put one of those on top, and then you sacrifice all of your Conspicuous Snoop copies to deal infinite damage to your opponent. There is also a goblin that makes it do life loss rather than damage, so in some situations, if you have an unlife, this combo will actually not kill you depending on the build of your opponent's deck. However, try to avoid it happening if possible, since you don't know if they're playing a damage source versus only life loss sources potentially. So they attack with Snoop. We are on our turn forced to Grace the Pact, and then we can play a Pentad Prism. We play Pentad Prism, and now they draw lands, they play a Hierarch. So it's kind of raising me the question of what is in my opponent's hand. Now they mulled to 5, they didn't play this Hierarch on 1, so I guess they drew it early before they played this Snoop. They drew it on their turn 1. This Harbinger was just random off the top of their library, so what else do they have in their land? It looks like 1 million lands, so did they just literally keep 4 land Snoop? They might have, which is gutsy. But we take damage. They're not going to kill us with damage before we win, so the only thing that matters here is if they find a Harbinger. Profane Tutor, I get an Angel's Grace. And if I get an Unlife off of the Profane Tutor, then I could play the Unlife, but I only have 5 mana unless I top deck a land, meaning that I can't actually win with Ad Nauseam the next turn. Whereas if I get Grace, I can play the Pentad Prism, and then I have 7 mana in play, plus a land drop that I'm guaranteed to hit off of this Ad Nauseam. So Grace Ad Naus with 8 mana in total will let me win next turn if I play this Pentad Prism this turn. So while Unlife might make me a little bit more likely to survive if they do happen to have Harbinger and only have the life loss version of the combo, they don't have Harbinger in hand, otherwise they would have played it, and they would be relying on hitting it off the top of their library. I would rather win next turn and take the risk if they do have Harbinger. So let's see what happens. We draw another Grace, which is actually kind of useful if they have a combo version that deals damage. Then we could Grace and then on our upkeep Grace again and actually live the combo potentially. However, they draw another land. They have a land on top. They attack us with the Snoop, and then they die to Ad Nauseam combo. So we draw our deck, play out a land, and then play Thassa's Oracle. Okay. So on to game 2. Alright, so game 2 of match number 5. We are 3-1 in the league, and we're up a game. So we are on the play, or on the draw for this game. We have Engineered Explosives in our opening hand, which I don't particularly love. I think I brought it in because Pact is not the greatest in this matchup. It did kind of win us game number 1, but for the most part, I don't think you can really rely on Pact too much, because you have to use it in Pact Grace Force of Will mode most of the time. And I'd rather like take their card with Thoughtseize or kill something with or kill something with the white and X removal spell. So they mull to 5 cards, which is quite good. I expect they're aggressively mulliganing for the combo because they know that aggro hands are not likely to do anything to us. Our hand is pretty good here. We have mana, we have a Shelldock, we have Profane, so if we hit a blue card off Shelldock, then we can Profane on turn 2, go get a Spoils, and then kill them on turn 4. They lead on Aether Vial. We hit a blue card off Shelldock. Our opponent has a Snoop with a Harbinger on top, so our only hope is that they don't have enough mana. We draw Spoils, we play the Explosives. They Violent a Prospector, so they have enough mana. And now we're dead. So our opponent has a turn 3 kill on a mull to 5. And on to game 3 we go. Alright, we are here for match 5, game number 3. We are 1-1 and we're on the play in this one. This is for all the, well, not quite the 5-0, but for the 4-1. So let's try to see if we get it. Our opening hand here is pretty bad. We only have 1 land. These are redundant Jaces. However, if we do draw a land, this hand gets quite good quite quickly, because then we can play this Pentad Prism and we will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana on turn 4, which will kill them. So I think I do actually keep this, especially given that they mulled to 4. So our opponent mulled to 4 again. They're aggressively looking for the combo. This is not them having bad luck. This is them understanding what they need to do in the matchup in order to potentially try to win. They need to aggressively combo versus us. Their aggro plan will not be relevant against us. Or their value plan will not be relevant against us. So we don't draw a land. It's okay, we can miss a land drop here, and then we do hit a land, and that's better. It doesn't really matter what's under the Shelldock since I already have Jaces in my hand. They play a Matron. They get a Snoop. It goes back to our turn. They're just playing irrelevant creatures so far. Bloom comes in. We draw a Profane Tutor, and we're kind of in a weird spot because we only have 5 mana in total. If we had 6 mana, we would be able to filter mana with this Prism and then kill them with Jace, Spoils, Grace, but we don't. So what I think about doing here is I think, okay, well, I can't really play this on life and have it do anything. I can't really play the Prism profitably, although, I mean, maybe the thing is, if I make a Prism off of the 2 lands, both of them are blue, and so I would have a 1 counter Prism, which is 6 mana, but it's not the right colors of mana, because I have 2 blue mana, 1 of anything on the Prism, and then the Lotus has to give me both the 3rd blue and the other color for Grace or Spoils, so playing the Prism on its own doesn't work. So what I end up deciding to do here is to just play a Jace, and now if I just top deck a land of a different color next turn, I can filter it to black-white with the Prism and win with the Jace that is in play. They're unlikely to be able to kill my Jace when I plus it, since they only have 3 power in play. I expect them to just play Snoop. We do draw the land of a different color. I play it here. I actually choose not to play the Prism, I think. because if they have artifact destruction, then that would kill my Prism and mean that I can't win next turn. I'd rather play it the turn I need it to filter. Now there is some trade-off there, because if they instead kill the Jace, if I had played the Prism, then I would be in a spot where top decking a land lets me win. However, if they kill the Jace, then I'm expecting I might have a couple turns, and I'll just try to play the Prism next turn. So what I end up doing is I end up just suspending the Profane Tutor, because why not? This game is not going super fast, and maybe it will eventually be relevant. Our opponent plays Snoop, and they play a land. And they attack Jace down to 2, but they are not able to kill him, as I predicted. And now we get to win with Pentad Prism, Grace Spoils, and then plus our Jace that is already in play. So we win match number 5 and end up with the 4-1.